All right, Shalom family, peace and blessings. Hope all is well. Welcome back to Jacob's Ladder. Before we get started, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and also if you haven't checked out the other studies that recently came out, the Dan study, and then especially the coming of Satan and his false prophets, part 7 also dropped today. So make sure you go back and listen to those. And if you're new to the channel, just go back through and just watch a couple of the older videos. So you can get caught up on some things. This video on connecting the dots, I'm just going to playing this clip from the KGB detective or defector, I guess, Yuri Bezmenov, and just even talking about basically like the takeover in America. And I'm just gonna play clips based on when I seen it, and then some things that I've been wanting to talk about for a while. But I'm not gonna do a lot of commentary on this video. More so just playing clips and showing you what I've seen in the recent years and how bad it's really gotten now. So we'll play this clip.
Mr. Bezmenov was born in 1939 in a suburb of Moscow. He was the son of a high-ranking Soviet Army officer. He was educated in the elite schools inside the Soviet Union and became an expert in Indian culture and Indian languages. He had an outstanding career with Novosti, which was and still is, I should say, the press arm or the press agency of the Soviet Union. It turns out that this is also a front for the KGB. He escaped to the West in 1970 after becoming totally disgusted with the Soviet system, and he did this at great risk to his life. He certainly is one of the world's outstanding experts on the subject of Soviet propaganda and disinformation and active measures. Well, you spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets use the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country.
That's crazy. We see that, especially right now. We've seen it the last couple of years, dealing with the pandemic and things like that. But I mean, it's really gotten that bad where you can show people full-on proof, and they just either just disregard it altogether, or they really just don't see the same thing that you're seeing. I mean, they're fully just blindfolded. It's crazy. And this is an interview from back in 1984. So just keep that in mind.
It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation.
15 to 20. This is in 84, so if you take, let's just say 20 years, that'd be 2004. And when he keeps talking, he said this has already happened. Back in 84, he said it's already done.
Years, because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft.
So who is the enemy? The enemy is the fallen one, right? But also you have other countries that are trying to infiltrate. Even though there are other countries that are trying to infiltrate and go into war with, Babylon, America, or in the daughter of Babylon, whatever you want to call it. The real enemy is the fallen one on all of mankind, right? But he has to use America as his kingdom, so to speak. All rulers have a kingdom, and then they, for the fallen one, America is his kingdom, but he rules the whole world from it.
heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years. Actually, it's overfulfilled because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him.
A person that is demoralized is unable to do it. So when you try to show people, this is not okay, even when he said it's basically completed, is because you have Christians, which are supposed to be like the higher morals, in this world, in this country, or a country that's based on Christianity, or loving God and stuff like that. It's to the point where now they don't even have proper morals. Everybody's demoralized, and it's so that's what he's saying. It's basically complete, but it's also a perpetual ongoing cycle because it's getting worse and worse. So even though they got to the point where it's completed, but it's not where they needed to go. It's basically like we got it to a point where they can constantly destroy and demoralize themselves, as we continue to push, or pump this information and these ideals into these people's minds. And it's also the same thing that happened to Israel in slavery, especially for Judah, when we go into the Willie Lynch letter, which I'll be doing that on a different video.
Him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his balls, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization. The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not...
real quick, I'm going to actually pause it here and play a couple of videos dealing with that, dealing with the demoralization. Because like I said, this is something that he said is already done. So things that were happening in the past, and I'm not going to go too far into those things, but different things of accepting certain ideals that were never accepted before were now becoming accepted. So the way women would dress, the way music was played, the way certain things weren't allowed to be said on TV, the way certain things wasn't allowed to be shown on TV. All those things over time being more and more accepted into society and being acceptable for everybody, it grew. So just like homosexuality wasn't accepted, as frowned upon and things like that, now we got this right here came from that being accepted, and once that door is open, and we'll see in the future, I'm pretty sure, what they call, I forgot the term that they're using for it. Basically, instead of calling a person a pedophile, you just say that they're attracted, attracted something. I forgot the name of it. I should probably look it up, put it on a different video. But the point is, pedophile or pedophilia is not going to be a thing anymore. Just like if you are a homosexual, you're attracted to the opposite or the same sex. These particular people are attracted to children, and you can't speak against their sexuality that they were born with, right? So now we're all the way to the point where I could be a so-called black man, but identify as a Asian lesbian, and people will have to, respect it. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna play another clip. This is the demoralization. This is what happened.
This is the Drag the Kids to Pride event at Mr. Mister's in Dallas's Oaklawn neighborhood, Organizers promoted it as a family-friendly drag show where kids danced with the performers. What came with it were protests outside.
You people are the symptom of a dying society, and you know it.
You're scaring children! Shut up! I live in this community. I have for several years.
Daisy says she first saw a poster for this event near where she lives.
I don't believe that I should be seeing signs advertising for children to be dancing on stage with men in thongs and in inappropriate clothing and makeup.
The organizers say today was a family-friendly event with a safe environment separate from their normal operations. In a statement, they said, "We believe everyone should have a space to celebrate who they are. Mr. Misters is a place where everyone is welcome to feel accepted, safe, and included."
I've been here like every night.
All right. And I didn't even put the drag queen story hour in here because a lot of people have seen that, but this is even worse because now you're taking it to another level. You know what I mean? Sitting there with all that stuff on your face and reading to children, like children books, even though the books are even sometimes worse than just those people being there. This is even crazier because you're talking about over sexualizing even further than what has already been done through music and videos and just society itself. You know what I mean? So another one.
Disturbing footage surfaced of a drag queen performing in front of infants. Yes, infants. The vision is so shocking that we have to heavily blur it. But these are grown adults in bondage gear or in G-strings strutting around in front of tiny kids, infants, toddlers. The heavily sexualized drag shows is just the latest in a growing list of drag events being targeted towards children. Joining me now is Sky News contributor Dominique Samuels. Dominique, you were the first to expose this footage on Twitter. It was your tweet that went viral. Tell me about these performances for toddlers and babies. Why?
Right, well, it is quite the saga because when I came across these screen recordings and screenshots I was sent by my followers, I was absolutely horrified. Did a bit of digging, bit of investigation, and it emerged that this company is a baby cabaret company. It's called Cabba Baba Rave. So this is sexualized, heavily sexualized events involving drag queens and people wearing barely any clothing, dancing suggestively, but it's targeted at young children. And people have said, well, they don't know what's going on, the babies don't know what's going on, it's for the parents. The easy answer to that is, then why not leave your babies at home and enjoy that sort of behavior that would be best placed in a strip club? And there are real concerns here in terms of child safeguarding. I've spoken to numerous experts that do believe that there are serious issues here, and many people, including myself, have the personal belief that these sorts of acts and behaviours are really akin to grooming, actually.
Well,
All right. And I would play this one. Well, actually, I'm going to play it. I played this in the Coming of Satan video. But I'll just play this part. It's not that
So with the Satanic Temple, we are non-theistic Satanists, so we don't believe in a literal Satan. Satan is a literary metaphor. And, surrounding that, we have our 7 tenets, which are the, basic tenets of empathy, compassion, justice, bodily autonomy, things like that, all together to encompass our general philosophy of life.
All right. Another one.
Steel Club in Chesapeake met for the first time. We're talking about the after-school Satan Club.
9 students participated at B.M. Williams Primary School tonight, and that's where we find Sarah Hammond live. And Sarah, how did this go?
Well, like you said, it's been months of back and forth, but Superintendent Dr. Jared Cotton sent a letter to Chesapeake parents today letting them know they have finally reached an agreement with the after-school Satan Club, allowing them to meet. From the beginning, the after-school Satan Club has been met with opposition in Chesapeake.
To allow Satan to have dominion over this building is just completely heartbreaking.
Steve Shearbaum, a devout Catholic, says he and fellow Christians will meet outside the school to pray until the club is no longer allowed to meet.
So we're out here to make reparation, more so than our feelings. We feel that the rights of God have been violated terribly.
But for now, the club is not going anywhere. According to a letter from Superintendent Dr. Jared Cotton, the club is allowed to meet after hours for the remaining dates in their facility use application. He says favoring one religion or organization over another because of its mission would violate...
No, I don't care about all that part, but I do want to point out something concerning the people that are out there protesting. Those particular people... not all of them, but people like that are also the same ones that will be okay with drag queen story hour. So just because this particular club is called Satan and it goes against a name that they read in their Bible, they don't follow the commandments and the laws that are given by Christ. So those same people will be fine with certain things, or they won't stand up for righteousness when it comes to what's happening to our children in this society, dealing with what I just showed in the other videos. But when it comes to Satanism, they're going to be fully against it, not knowing that they're following Satan themselves in the guise of basically like an antichrist figure, which is, you know, what they're worshiping. Now, like I said, I'm not saying all of those people there are like that, but majority of them probably are. You know what I mean? If they had to pick and choose, you know what I mean, in society, in their community, to be shunned because they fully disagree with, you know what I mean, the drag queens or just homosexuality in general, they will make it seem like they're okay with it just to fit in. You know what I mean? But they'll make a stand when it comes to after school Satan. Right? So I'm gonna play one more clip and then go back to the other video.
Partners made light of Satanism, with one of the brand's merchandise reading, "Satanism respects pronouns. This comes as the retail giant is ramping up their pride-related merchandise."
According to the Washington Examiner, the UK brand Aberellin is headed by a self-proclaimed gay transgender man. I should say a self-identified gay transgender man known as Eric, and promotes clothing that includes slogans reading the following: "Satanism respects pronouns, cure transphobia, not trans people," a tote bag that reads "Too queer for here," and a messenger pack that reads "We belong everywhere."
So now it's Satan.
So the problem is Satanism is becoming one of those things where you're accepted. You're going to be accepted if you follow Satanism. You know what I mean? So whatever it is you're dealing with or blah, blah, you know what I mean? Oh, those Christians are going to judge you and this. And it's like, come over here. We accept you for who you are. You know what I mean? So they're pulling people in that way through multiple different means. You know what I mean? Like I said, they have it to where they're just full on Satan. Hey, is saying is Satanism. You know what I mean? Or then you have the ways where it's saying it's witchcraft. And then you have the ones that are saying, oh, we're just spiritual people, you know what I mean? Like follow the spirituality type of thing. Or there's the ones where you manifest your own heaven here on earth, you know what I mean? You're a god type of thing. And then so it's on and on and on these different ways. But Satanism is becoming one of those things now where it's like it's not even a problem. Well, I'll say it's not a problem, but it's eventually going to become normal. And people are just going to fully just accept it and not speak out on it anymore eventually, right? But he's going to talk about that. That's also part of these 4 stages that we're clearly in. Again, this is back in 1984.
Care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation. It's what matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems, and you can see it quite clearly that.
And those things were destabilized and rebuilt when after 9/11. So the economy, they were at $3 trillion in debt. They had that meeting and stuff like that the day before, if not 2 days before 9/11 happened. And then after that, nobody talked about these trillions of dollars that was missing from the government. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, it's just no one's talking about it. And then those buildings fell, especially Building 7 that had most of that information in it. They didn't even get hit by anything, just crumbled to the ground. All the information just disappeared, and no one talked about it anymore. And we went to war. You know what I mean? So, and then with that, also the security. You talk about foreign relations. You know what I mean? You made it seem like, oh, they have nuclear weapons. You know what I mean? Years and years later, oh, I guess there wasn't any. But you know what I mean? Now we have all these securities in place. People's rights, many different ways were taken away. You know what I mean? That's why you got to deal with TSA the way they are, and then the whole thing with Edward Snowden and them spying on everybody constantly and stuff like that, so they can make sure they keep us safe from the terrorists. Like all that stuff came from that one event. You know what I mean? And other things before that, but mainly that one event, and then other events that followed it.
It's in some areas, in such sensitive areas as defense and economy. The influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic. I could never believe it 14 years ago when I landed in this part of the world that the process will go that fast. The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in Central America now. And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization. It may last indefinitely. Normalization is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized. This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis.
Now, when he says bring the crisis, we've been at the, I would say, the door, knocking on the door, but it wasn't being necessarily answered yet. You know what I mean? And now we're at the point where, again, the debt ceiling is they have to come to agreement by the 1st of June, I believe. And if they don't, then, you know, they default, and then we go into a crisis mode, you know what I mean? And that could take about 5 to 6 weeks or so like that for things to really get bad. You know what I mean? When we talk about preparedness, you know what I mean, physically anyways, you know what I mean? Most people don't have more than a week's worth. I think it's like a week, maybe like a week and a half worth of food in their cabinets, you know what I mean? So if everything crashes and inflation just goes through the roof and it costs you, you know what I mean, $20 for a loaf of bread, it's a lot of people are not going to be able to make it when it comes to, you know, food and stuff like that. And that's when people start robbing and stealing and killing and all the other things, you know what I mean? So that crisis mode, and then you bring in the tanks and stuff like that, and you militarize everything, and then you become, you know, basically like in a sense of like martial law, but it's going to be, like you said, normalized. So it's not going to be just martial law, we're on lockdown for a little bit. It's like, this is going to be the regular thing from here on out, right? And that goes into the market, the beast and all that stuff down in the future. But, you know, I'm going to play this clip real quick, just dealing with the U.S. debt.
U.S. debt is skyrocketing out of control and now totals over $31 trillion, figure which is 10 times higher than it was in 1990, 5 times higher than it was in 2000, nearly 3 times more than it was in 2010, and over 35% higher than it was before the pandemic. The debt keeps increasing because America keeps borrowing money like a drunken sailor, which is now turning into a big problem now that Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve have hiked interest rates. Because these higher interest rates now mean that America is going to be paying over $600 billion a year just in interest cost on the debt, which is going to cause us to have to take out more debt in the future to pay the interest, with the Congressional Budget Office projecting that America's debt's going to rise to $47 trillion by the end of 2033. And the more that this debt grows, the more that inflation is going to be a problem in the long run, the more that interest rates are going to go up, and the greater the likelihood that America loses its reserve currency status. So are any of our politicians in Washington paying attention? Because the U.S. debt is skyrocketing out of...
All right, now I'll pull up this U.S. debt clock. If you guys haven't seen it before, you can just type in U.S. debt clock and it'll show, you know, you can find this online. So right now it's showing 31 trillion, right, which is just crazy. And then one thing I seen when I was looking at this, it says, next to that it says debt per citizen, and then debt per taxpayer. So I'm like, okay, so there's like obviously there's a debt difference between those obviously because they have people coming in to the country that are, undocumented and things like that, and then you have those that are here, or been here or born here or whatever, but they also don't work. So if you come down to this part over here, it says U.S. population, and it shows the population at 334 million, and then that's constantly increasing. And then you have next to that it says U.S. workforce, and up here on the top, the little logo thing, it changes when you scroll over things. So it says total civilian non-farm labor force employment. So if you're not a farmer and stuff like that, or in the farming industry, I guess it doesn't count. So one thing I did, oh man, I took it down. I was like, man, what's crazy is some people may not know this, but when you get like your nope, I need that small. Your birth certificate and things like that, your birth certificate is traded on the stock market along with other things that are, technically yours, but those things are traded on the stock market. And right here it says that if you just take the taxpayer debt versus the people that are working, and you times, this is just something I was thinking about when I just happened to look this up. I'll just keep it even. 248, right? Times that many people that are working, you got 40 trillion. So there goes their debt right there. So you got 40 trillion, which obviously you can keep, that means you don't have to do all of the workforce, right? You keep some of those, the so-called essential workers, how they practice that over the last couple of years to find out who's essential and who's not, right? And then you got a bunch of undocumented people that are coming in, or they're letting all these people in that can eventually maybe take over these jobs that don't have those bonds being traded on the stock market, right? And then you have AI taking over jobs also. So just something that popped in my mind was, if America was needed to pay back this debt, and the scriptures say, those that lead into captivity shall go into captivity. Maybe they might get rid of some of these people, not Israel, but a lot of these other people that were here that had to be, their ancestors did what they did to Israel. You might want to keep this in mind, because if they got to pay this debt back, a lot of people are going to come up missing. And this is definitely one of the ways to do it right there. Just the workforce alone, not even all the people that are here in the country. Just the workforce, 40 trillion, debt problem gone.
Promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth to destabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C. with benevolent dictators like Walter Mondale, who will promise lots of things, never mind whether the promises are fulfillable or not. Your leftists in United States, all these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of the subversion only to destabilize the nation. When their job is completed, they are not needed anymore. They know too much. Some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see that Marxist-Leninists come to power, obviously they get...
So these people that help establish all this stuff that we see, those previous videos and stuff like that, not all those people, but a lot of people that are in power and stuff like that, that don't see what it is that they're doing, like he was talking about before, and we see in the scriptures, those that are just completely blinded and won't accept the truth when you're trying to show them that you're in the wrong. And not only that, those people in a lower level they're like, think it's okay just to, I'm gonna vote locally and stuff like that. It's like you're still helping the system. You're still helping the system.
Offended. They think that they will come to power. That will never happen, of course. They will be lined up against the wall and shot. But they may turn into the most bitter enemies of Marxist-Leninists when they come to power. And that's what happened in Nicaragua. You remember most of these former Marxist-Leninists were either put to prison or one of them split, and now he's working against Sandinistas. It happened in Grenada when Maurice Bishop was already a Marxist. he was executed by a new Marxist who was more Marxist than this Marxist. Same happened in Afghanistan when first there was Taraki, he was killed by Amin, then Amin was killed by Babrak Karmal with the help of KGB. Same happened in Bangladesh when Mujibur Rahman, very pro-Soviet leftist, was assassinated by his own Marxist-Leninist military comrades. It's the same pattern everywhere. The time bomb is ticking with every second. The disaster.
Crazy. So, all right, y'all. It's already been 30 minutes. Sorry about the 15-20 minute time marker, but it seems like this video is probably going to be about 30 minutes. This is where it's trending so far. So, with that, I just want to say peace and blessings, and I'll see y'all in the next one.